Some say there exists an invisible madman that roams the Commonwealth looking for glory, an entity so loved by the people that he would lay the smackdown at anyone's request, a man that once performed a dance move wrong and got blasted into memehood. So it begs the question, can you beat Fallout 4's John Cena? The rules are simple. I can only use fists and a special wrestling icon to deal damage. And with that out of the way, let's get into the run.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋，但是速度与激情就冰淇淋，速度与激情。早上好，中国！
As always, we start with the making of the character, and it's a good thing this guy is invisible because character creation is hard. And next, I set the stats. And to no one's surprise, I went with 10 in strength for definitely not roided out damage, endurance at 10 because John will be taking a ton of damage in return, and charisma at 4 because he's a likable guy. However, these stats would get fixed very soon into the run because I forgot one key detail about power attacks. So now, with an up-and-coming WWE superstar free in the Commonwealth, the first order of business was going and getting a tribute to another legend of old. But on the way, John had to give a lesson in how to properly perform a takedown. Continuing on, he stopped off at Diamond City and Piper was there like normal, having just been locked outside. But what wasn't normal was Piper showing her true form as a demon. This could not stand.
I told Sullivan to keep that gate shut. You.
However, this is also the time when a crippling issue presented itself. Since power attacks were what triggered John Cena's grappling moves, and at this point in time he had the stamina of a dead horse, some light cardio training was going to be needed, like grabbing old world paint and dealing with the people hoarding it, or defending a retrofitted drive-in. But with the type of work John Cena does for people in need, this didn't bother him. Plus, this would play a pivotal role later on. Now, with a couple of levels under his belt, the quest for his old world tribute could continue. Old Hogan. A chair with a mustache and a need to send things flying. Or at least put them in the ground. However, old Hogan wasn't the end-all be-all. No, John still had to train and fight his own battles. Except sometimes Raiders still gave him a run for his money. But this only fueled John Cena to get stronger. He wasn't going to win any WrestleManias without training, so what better way to train than take on an entire mobster hideout? However, as sweet as these wrestling moves are, getting them done back to you is absolutely ridiculous, especially when you look like a blinded sloth just flailing hopelessly, hoping to God something connects, and then a random enemy just comes and lays you out. But further in, Nick was freed and the escape could begin. So our duo arrived at Skinny Malone, but instead of waiting for their super long speech, it was time to rumble. With the gangsters taken out and Nick finding out about John Cena's quest to become the biggest wrestler of the Commonwealth, John was told about Kellogg, an infamous wrestler who wasn't above breaking the rules and having unfair matches. But if John Cena could beat Kellogg, surely that would get him onto the road to WrestleMania. But besides beating up just one individual, what if John Cena went on tour to build up hype for his debut? It was time to free the Minutemen. Except where John expected to only find raiders causing a ruckus, he found a lot more than he had asked for.
Ooh, yeah! Ooh, yeah! Because I'm wild, yeah! Dig it! Man! Dig it! Man! Ooh, yeah! Man! Because I'm wild, yeah! Man! Dig it! Man! And I'll never forgive myself. It's the worst day of my life!
But at least with the Minutemen secured, he could build up a fan base at the same time. Now that John Cena had officially begun his career, it was time to start setting up fights. And first up was the Raiders at Backstreet Apparel. But like any debut match to build hype, an evil organization was going to make their presence known and attempt to steal the show. But try as they might, when you're building the reputation of a household icon, nothing can stop you. And when it came to Kellogg, a Commonwealth assassin stood no chance amongst a giant. With the trash taken out, John Cena got the proof of his victory and headed over to Dr. Amari to set up his next match. But as a reward, John also got to see Kellogg's memories to boost his skills. See, they don't just juice up in the Commonwealth, they straight up inject their enemies into their brains. With the paperwork sorted, John was told to go meet up with Virgil in the Glowing Sea to get the deets on where to go next. When you hear the words Glowing Sea, nothing positive comes to mind, but when you've been blessed by a chair harboring Hulk Hogan's soul, there's very little that can stop you. Just look at these rad scorpions. And as if that wasn't scary enough, a bunch of ghouls had to be shown that it takes a lot more than sheer numbers to take on John Cena. After making it to Virgil, John was instructed that his next fight would be against another Institute minion, the same organization that tried to stop his early career. But of course, you can't stop this train once it's in motion. Now, there's supposed to be a joke here, but considering I can't see anything on screen, I don't know what I'm supposed to make a joke about. After laying the smackdown to the Courser, John went to the bigwigs behind the scenes to decode the chip and then returned to Virgil for plans to build a teleporter to set up his final match. And due to all of the Make-A-Wish requests gifted by the Minutemen, he had the pieces to build it. Once inside the Institute, John Cena met with the organizer of WrestleMania, Father. However, instead of being lured into a forever contract with all of his earnings going into the Institute, John did one last Make-A-Wish for a trapped child. He was ending the contract on his own terms. Back out in the real world, John let the Minutemen know that the road to WrestleMania was upon them, and they would need to get as many pay-per-views as possible to fund the journey. So, Preston hooked up John with a tour of the Commonwealth to build up hype for the coming finale. And to help the matter further, John Cena went and helped the Minutemen take the castle to boost their signal. Although, since you can't suplex a giant Murloc, a steel chair does the job just fine. But because everyone knows you can't have pay-per-views without some way to send the signal. Continuing on with his quest, John met up with the Forge to create an alliance in case things got out of hand later, but they had other plans. and in what should have been our hero's last moment, he leapt back into action and finished the Forge leader off. But don't worry, Raiders in power armor don't stop here. Not if Boomer had anything to say about it. The man doesn't even need his fat man to do work. But with a couple more promotional matches under his belt, John Cena went to set up the castle with some artillery to make sure the word got out about the upcoming event. This one would be something for the history books. Now with the final match confirmed, the last thing to do was to set up one hell of a light show. And what a show it was! Due to all of those Make-A-Wish requests John Cena did, he had enough materials to build the best defense system you've ever seen. But in case the Institute lackeys made it past the defenses, they had to deal with a headlock. To no one's surprise, if you do tons of charity work, it pays off in the end. And now, the highlight of WrestleMania could commence. A quick trip through the sewers and a quick call for the Minutemen to rally, and let's just say, things got wild. With the fighting settled, a last-minute bomb was placed on the Institute's reactor. John and the homies teleported out and set it off, solidifying the craziest pay-per-view event ever. This run was fun, especially to watch enemies get rid of their guns to grapple instead. It blows my mind that these animations already existed in the game, but it sucks that you had to solve a Rubik's Cube to make them work. I would highly recommend this mod for anyone who uses Melee, and I'll link it in the description below. Next week, I will be doing the Futurama run, as it's going to take a little bit longer than I had expected. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing, as it helps the channel out a ton. Plus, if you have a suggestion for a challenge run you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. I play all sorts of games, so no challenges off the table. I want to thank all of you that watched to this point, and as always, I've been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I will see you on the next one.
Yeah.